City of Hudson Public Works Committee meeting to order. First item on the agenda, consideration of Public Works Committee meeting minutes.
Move to approve. Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Number 2, discussion and possible action of the Public Works 2017 and 2018 capital requests.
I will start that.
Okay.
As the committee will recall, we bonded for the 17 and 18 projects together last spring. And so we are bringing back the 2018 capital projects just to verify that you are still okay with the equipment and the projects that are on that relate to Public Works. You have a memo in front of you, and first on that memo is equipment. And so if it's okay with you, Kevin will just briefly describe the 2018 equipment purchases.
Okay.
What my plan is here is to replace truck number 43, which is a 2000 single axle plow truck, with the new 2018 plow truck. We've had to unfortunately put $8,000 into that truck this year because the transmission went bad in it. So it's not what I really wanted to do, but that's something that we had to do, so that's why that plow truck is on there. 3/4 ton pickup with the box is going to be replacing the 2004 Ford F-350 1-ton dually, and that's the truck that is used for all of our diggers and locates. He runs around in that truck and does all that stuff. And then that truck there that we have, we're going to reuse and put a flatbed on it and then reuse that for the water truck in the summertime. And in the wintertime, that truck will be used to pull our skid steer and trailer around for sidewalk, snow removal, and things like that. The blend boss that we have on this, it's a piece of equipment that we use to fill all of our trucks with our salt brine and calcium chloride and beet juice. And what this does, right now we're putting the two products into a tank and mixing them, but the accuracy of how much we're blending into, when we mix that into the tank, isn't real accurate. So this way we can keep, with the MS4 stuff coming through, we can keep more track of how much product we're using. So when the DNR does, eventually I'm sure this is going to happen, we can tell them how many gallons of calcium chloride beet juice we're using, how many gallons of salt brine we're using on certain routes. It gets down to how many gallons each truck is using and how much is being applied. So
Is this like a trailer or a
Nope,
bin or just a tank or?
It's a box that's about 3 foot by 4 foot by about 2 foot deep, and it has capabilities of putting 3 different products in and blending them out all at once and loading them into the truck.
Okay.
All at one time. Our plow maintenance.
Plus,
What?
does it automatically keep records? Is that what
Yep,
it's
it
saying?
automatically keeps records, and then we can do a spreadsheet right from that machine. And then this way too, with the new trucks that we're purchasing, I can take a thumb drive, go in and download everything, and then I can make a spreadsheet of every truck of how much product they've put down as far as salt brine, so we can keep, eventually we're going to have to keep closer tabs on that stuff. So that's where I'm trying to get us, so we've been really far behind on some of that stuff as far as calculating what we actually use every year. And this way it'll get us in the process of being able to follow that closer so we can budget better and know what we're putting down. Plow maintenance. This year I have one front plow that needs to be sent down, sandblasted, and just some things reworked on it. And then I also have 3 wing plows that I want to send down, and they'll get sandblasted. some of the bushings that need to be replaced, just normal maintenance. Some of them, the trip edges, there's a spring broke. We feel that there's a spring broke in one of them, but we feel we can make it through the winter with it without any issues, and then have that fixed. It's just upkeep on our equipment that needs to be done to keep it functional and we don't have breakdowns. Cement saw and trailer that we're looking at, it's a walk-behind cement saw with I believe it has either 26 or 28-inch blade on it. They use it for cutting out curb line, pavement, so when they're redoing all of our catch basins, it's easier to cut them out, and it's cleaner cuts and easier to put back and replace when they're done.
What are we doing now?
And the one that we have right now is roughly 15 to 17 years old, and it's done its time. It's just time to replace. We will get a little bit back out of it. I'll try to auction it, but like I say, it's just time. It's just not as efficient as it should be. And I don't want to end up starting to stick a lot of money into a piece of equipment that's that old. So it's just better to step ahead with that. Our Ryder pavement roller, this will be replacing a 1977 Essex walk-behind piece of equipment. So this piece of equipment that we have right now is 30 years old. It's fine for a smaller patch, but a lot of the larger patches that we are doing now, to do them with that piece of equipment, you have to walk on the asphalt behind it. And as far as a safety issue, we really shouldn't have guys walking on 300-degree asphalt or trying to smooth things out in these patches that we're trying to do. So this roller will essentially help us be able to do larger patches and do them more efficiently and have them be, correct, And then the four-wheeler that we have is replacing 2012 four-wheeler, which we use for dragging all of our ball fields, and we also use it for snow removal in the wintertime. And it gets used throughout the summer every day, plus every weekend for tournaments and just for regular ball to set up the fields. So that has a lot of hours on it.
So you're replacing the existing one?
Yes.
So we have just one?
Yep.
Okay.
The department, Public Works Department did a great job of purchasing 2017 equipment this year. They have savings over the budget of $73,000. So kudos to them for doing a great job. And so what we would recommend is $50,000 of that would be used to help fund Hanley Street improvements. And then the other $23,091 would go into their Public Works Equipment Reserve, which they've used in the past if they purchase something and the budget isn't enough to purchase the item, or if something would break. Next, we have the street projects. Public Works Commission's already talked about Hanley Road from Carmichael to Heritage, and then we have in there the street maintenance program to continue that at $130,000. And then the sidewalk, curb, and gutter program to continue that at $75,000, and then Stage Line Road street lighting at $50,000. Are there any specific questions on those?
We've discussed all these. haven't we?
Yep, those are all routine. Mhm.
Yep.
And then the park projects,
And the Hanley is still an estimate, is that correct?
that is still an estimate.
Great.
The park projects total $540,000. We have the Walnut Street Bridge repairs at $390,000, and that is partially funded with grant funding. And then the boat launch ramp extension and the docks at the boat launch. Those are in there.
Brenda, does the mooring fees go into do the mooring fees go into a separate fund?
They do.
Why aren't we doing that with the boat launch?
I don't know why we're not, but we,
Because it seems to me that taxpayers shouldn't be stuck with the entire cost of redoing a boat launch that's used by relatively few people. And why not fund it out of those that use the boat launch rather than taxpayers?
right now, the boat launch money goes back into the general fund. So that is keeping the property taxes lower. So there's that, but we could look at segregating that.
Well, I think we should. I mean, I'm not going to vote for this because I think we should do it differently. And I don't know the condition of the boat launch. Every year we hear it's not good, but I don't know where it is.
And Public Works can make a recommendation too, that on the boat launch and the docks, that to wait till the lakefront study comes back, and that 140,000 could be then determined if those are the two projects that should be done first down there, and that would be a council decision also.
And we're supposed to get that in December?
That I don't know.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Yeah, we could do that.
Okay.
What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Well,
One thing, just to interject here, the boat docks that we do have right now are in very rough shape. And whether the whole plan goes through with whatever they do at Lakefront Park, the boat docks should be replaced. That is one thing that right now they're in really rough shape, and the floats on them and things are starting to wear, and we can take some of them and reuse them down at Lake Malibu launch, and then the remaining parts of them we were looking at selling off. But the problem with the ones that we have now, with the removal in and out with them all the time, it's wearing the floats out prematurely. And
We might have a different dock system depending on
You know.
what the study comes back with. So do we want to invest money in something that might be obsolete?
well, the ones that we're looking at are built over at the state prison over in Minnesota. And I don't know, I haven't seen the whole plan, but the docks that we are looking at would be very feasible for that boat launch. You know,
well, there's two parts. The extension, I believe, is for the condition of in the water,
Yeah.
and that's in really bad shape. Personally, I know that personally. And that boat ramp is used extensively, not by the mooring people, but by everybody else, and it also generates its own revenue. So I'm not saying we shouldn't table it, or we should I believe we should wait a little bit longer to see what kind of recommendations do come out, and then make some adjustments based on what they say. So we could hold those two items for a little bit longer.
I think we should also ask it, just identify the funds that are coming there. So we,
Okay.
I mean, whether they go into the general fund or a set aside specifically, that doesn't it doesn't seem to make any difference to me. But we should know
Yeah.
where we are relative to what's this costing the city versus.
Well, in long term, the boat ramp generates, what, about 50,000 a year in revenue. So some of that should be used to maintain itself.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it probably should, we should always have that in mind. All right, you know, so it's costing 100,000, but that's what we gathered in the last 2 years.
Okay.
So it's just a perspective of,
So we want to take those two items out for consideration in the future after we get the study back?
Sure, if you want to say it like that. We'll just bring it up at the next meeting,
At the
January meeting.
January meeting to
Yeah,
council.
because then we'll know what,
You require a motion to do that?
Yes.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion and a section. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. All right. Good work, looks good. Good job saving money, too.
Thank you.
And also, well, Tom, what was the total on the grant that we got, or grants for that bridge?
I believe there was one, I thought one was somewhere, the larger one I thought was about 138,000.
Yeah.
The other one was smaller, and don't quote me on that one, but I thought it was somewhere in the 45,000.
That's a lot of money, yeah.
Smaller of the two.
That's over half of the project, right, or give or take?
I can verify that and get you.
Okay, that'd be great, but just
I know
wanted to know.
one was about half as the other one.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. All right, next up is the number 3, discussion of possible action on the park board's recommendation to accept the concept plan for pickleball courts at Grandview Park.
We
Right.
have several people here that have from pickleball presenting.
You guys
them.
pickleballers?
Yeah.
All right.
Just,
Do you want to just have some general comments, or do you want to, what do you think, how do you want to do this?
Principally here, I think, to hear how you handle that, we've been working.
State your name and address, please.
I'm Mike Peterson at 43 Canary Way in Hudson here, and I'm part of the association group here. I'm here with Diane and John DeGraff. And we were hoping, and we've talked to Deb and talked to Tom Zulli at length about this project now, and we're trying to find a way we can put together some courts within the city, knowing that we might have to raise some money, and the city that, but we pretty much have settled on the Grandview Park as a place to put it. 4 to 8 courts. We had 8 in our original design, but we've kind of settled on 4, knowing that raising money by next summer is going to be a little tougher to get as many. But if we had 4 and also plan for the other 4 so that we could add to it later, we were hoping that we could find out now what the approximate cost would be for that. And that's what the assessment for the concept request was for. And we were hoping that you would consider it. I know that we get a strong feeling the park board supports us. And we're going to be going to the city council eventually if you guys come up with some plan and some master assessment of how much it might cost. And we do have one person in our group who has worked at length with a lot of the pickleball associations around the region, many different cities here. And he has a lot of information about the costs that have been involved in those at Eau Claire and New Richmond and River Falls and that. So he's a good resource for that, but you're the people that know how to assess and work out costs for the fill and the slab and the fences and all that too. So that's what we're hoping that you will approve and move ahead with, to just to get an assessment for it. And it's our understanding that there has been some funds identified. I don't know if they've been approved totally for that, but just for the assessment.
We had the discussion of the dog park was the last one that we had a discussion about, and those people did a terrific job of raising money to help defray the cost. What are your plans in that regard?
Our fundraising committee just met last night for the first time, so we are planning to do just that. We're going to be talking to the people from the park, or the dog park, and find out what their strategy was. We don't have a really coordinated strategy yet. That's what we're trying to figure out now. We're going to talk to some of the foundations and some of the grant people. Chamber of Commerce has offered us their list of businesses and people like that, and now we're trying to put together some materials that we can start to approach some of these, but none of us have really been involved in that type of thing. What we don't want to do is embarrass ourselves by walking into some business and offering, we'd like to have $10,000 or something like that, and they just kick us right out. We want to be able to approach them in a professional way, so that's why we're taking our time now to organize that aspect of it, to make sure that we don't fall on our face, because we will need money from us. The plan is that we'll be looking for some some city or park or some money from the city, and then we will also raise money. But the maintenance of the courts, once they're built, if they're built, we hope to support through our member fees. And we'll soon be having a membership drive, and we'll start charging people. But we don't want to do that until we can get some approvals on this too. We've been playing at the Y now. We've been playing at the Red Cedar Canyon and Stone Pine courts in the summertime outside, but otherwise in the Y. And we just kind of running out of room. We're up, to 100 people now probably that are on our mail list and that can participate at any time. So we fill the gym, and the Y can't give us enough space to accommodate everybody. So we want to move outdoors and do something better. So
I noticed Stillwater has like 22 courts, or they have a lot.
there are a lot of them, and we put together, I'll let Dan say something to it, but we put together a little profile of pickleball in the area here, and we're really the only city that doesn't have a set of pickleball courts outdoors now that were built by the city. And we understand that tennis courts and things like that are not necessarily a part of the Parks Department. They're all of them, they're city, but there aren't enough of them that we can use those too. They are nice to have. You know, tennis courts can be painted, and that's what we've done at Stone Pine and at Cedar Canyon too. There's Deanne.
The only thing I would add too is that we are working with the Y, and hopefully we will, not hopefully, we have a partnership started with them, and we're, excuse me, trying to get the 501c3 through them, so that when we seek money through grants and so forth, it can go as a for nonprofit status. And also we're hoping to get a contribution from the Y towards this, and they would partner with us with some possible usage of it. You know, we're not there yet as far as discussing that, but we feel very strongly that it's a community effort, and you know, we want the city and the Y and our association together to move forward with it.
It's a great idea.
So when do you think you'll be in a position to come back with a sort of a plan or an idea of how much money you can contribute toward this effort?
That's hard to say.
Yeah.
I can't answer that now because
Okay.
we're just in the fledgling part of this. That's why we need to talk to, we'd like to meet with the St. Croix Valley Foundation to find out how they go about things, because we know they're very professional about it. Not that they're going to give us money, but they might teach us how to get money. And that's one of the, so we're trying to identify places like that, resources that will help us build our fundraising effort.
We have grant writers. I actually was in charge of a large federal grant, so I wrote, for many years, wrote grants. And we have someone else that currently works at St. Thomas who writes a lot of grants, so we're looking for those type of sources too. We will go wherever we can to get funds, but right now we don't have even a clue as far as how much.
Okay, that makes sense.
It would help once we know how much the courts would cost too. And once we get that certainly isn't the main goal of this, because we know we're going to have to raise a substantial amount of money. We can start doing that as soon as we know that we have a project to work towards, so no matter what the cost. But thank you for your time and consideration. Yeah.
I see you have, you're looking at perhaps having tournaments here as.
Yeah, one of
being an attraction.
the ways
How many-
we could
how
make
many
money.
courts?
That's right.
How many courts does it take to be effective for a tournament?
Well, the more the better. 8 is what we were hoping, we could host tournaments for. We don't know if there are other places we could do that now. We know that there's new courts at the high school and tennis courts, but they're not pickleball accommodated. But that would be one way to raise some money to support our ongoing costs, and as well as put them back into the coffers, whoever needs.
My impression is that tennis courts are relatively expensive to build because the surface requirements is pickleball. Do they have the same surface?
Pretty much, yeah.
So it's.
Yeah, they're asphalt, they're not concrete.
But
So-
you get 3 for the size of one. Pickleball is much smaller.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like 8 would be ideal. I mean,
It would.
less than 8 is like, okay, but you're gonna be still kind of, moving along, trying to get 4 more.
Yeah.
I mean, right?
Exactly. And I
Okay.
know the Y is very interested in the tournament option, and they would really like to help coordinate, with that part, which would be great too.
There isn't a day goes by we don't have a couple new people walking through the Y and watching us play that come in and get interested, so, and it's one of the things that we're pushing too. It's not just for seniors, but it's the seniors, I think, that have driven this demand within the community now, and there aren't a lot of just specific senior programs here, outdoor programs and that, and we don't want to take anything away from the kids, that's one thing for sure, but anyone can play, anyone will be welcome. But we have a big group of seniors now doing it. These
The
aren't
other-
seniors, so I'm one of the seniors.
The other thing that we have actually talked with the Y about is working with their youth program
Yeah.
and mentoring with some of their at-risk youth that come into their programs and get them out on the pickleball court. And, I think it's an excellent opportunity to cross-generational.
We have an instruction program for it at the Y now too, so we are training people and teaching people as they come aboard.
Well,
Good. Thank you very much.
thank you. So the first item here, we're discussion and possible action on the park board's recommendation to approve the concept plan, which is generally, 8 courts at Grandview, right? That's what we're talking about here. Okay.
So the reason we did it this way was so that it was kind of similar to how we handled Dog Park, to accept the concept plan, that you're okay with them, going to Grandview. So obviously, since nothing else could probably go in there until, if they did, it's down the road. And then that's the first part of it, I guess.
Okay.
I was looking for a specific statement that we're supposed to be supporting here. I don't see, here's a motion.
I was looking for one too.
Well, staff recommendation says to continue discussions with the Pickleball Association on the proposed plans and funding options for the project.
Made a motion to approve the concept plan, okay.
So I guess our motion could be simply to recommend to continue discussions.
Yeah, I think, when we did it with the dog park, they were pretty far along in their ideas and fundraising and what they were going to do. And it sounds like they're just kind of getting started, so maybe it wouldn't be fair to, at this point, to do one thing or the other and just put it off for a couple of meetings.
Well, apparently this is on the agenda for next week for city council, so we could basically recommend to continue the discussions. And then part 2 of this is to identify
Essential some fun.
money to help with the study, the engineering services. Is that?
Yep.
Would we go straight to engineering
Well,
services,
maybe-
or could we do something a little bit cheaper?
Let me cautiously throw something out.
Yeah, okay.
And the word cautiously is because I have not been involved in any of the previous meetings with the Pickleball Association or the Park Board, and I see there's a lot. I just started to look at this yesterday when it came out, but there's a lot of paper here, and I guess one of the questions I have is, it sounds like, well, first of all, it might be 4 courts, might be 8, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the concept plan is either, other than is the number 8 and the location Grandview.
That seems
Those
to
are
be
kind of
the-
nice things to
Yeah.
have, but to me, I'm not sure, again, and I haven't been involved, but I'm not sure if that's a concept plan. But that said, it sounds like the engineering services that people are looking for, I looked at this letter of engagement and I see a little bit of a disconnect, and that being this letter of engagement is to actually put bid documents together once you have a
Right.
design and put, I don't believe, and based on what we're hearing here at the podium too, I think the total estimated project cost is still an unknown number is what I'm hearing. I'm a little bit confused as to how the engineering firm could put a letter of engagement together to design something when, and I'm not sure if the total budget's known. So, in another little sidelight preparation for tonight, I talked with the consultant, and he wasn't 100% sure what the cost of the 8 courts were gonna be either, because his letter of engagement specifies 8 courts, not 4. There is some statement in here about potentially having phase 1, so this would be engineering for phase 1, and then maybe phase 2 later, but in my view, this is cloudy at best. He forwarded me a link, some general pickleball information, and I'll have to say that I have never done a pickle court design, but one of the estimates for an 8 court with fencing and no lighting is 110 to 150,000. So I think some of the numbers I'm seeing in some of the other correspondence seem to be considerably less than that. So I guess that's some cautious points that I would throw out, I guess. I don't think this letter of engagement is what I think people are looking for. Here's what we're gonna build and here's what it's gonna cost.
Okay.
I'm not sure this fits that.
No, I
based on
don't
what
think
I'm
we're ready
reading.
for that. Well,
I think, to me, we are ready for the first motion. Where can I find that again?
Yeah.
Approve the concept plan for pickleball court as well as recommend a subcommittee to continue developing the concept. Well, you guys are going to be developing your fundraising, because if you were at our last budget meeting, you know we're not going to pop for a lot of money for pickleball courts. So that would be the heart of my motion, was to absolutely support the park board's motion, which is to move ahead, that piece, just move ahead with the concept and continue to develop it. What's it going to look like? What's the best thing? And while the fundraising piece is being developed as well. So,
okay.
Second.
I'll vote against it if it's seconded, because I think I agree with Tom. It's too mushy right now as to what we're approving and what's going to happen down the line. I'd like to see something more concrete.
that's why this is talking about approve a concept plan and have this thing fleshed out. And we're saying, we're blessing this at this point. Go ahead and figure out what it is you really want.
It's not ready to leave committee here, though. We need to do more work before we pass it on.
Yeah. No letter of engagement, no, we're not at that level yet, I don't think.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, if I may, our expectation was, and we're not sure what, I'm sorry you people don't know more about it now too, we could have brought more materials, but we were expecting that you might at least take a look at the design and the cost of design, because there's lots of models out there too, and that's what our expectation was, that we would get somewhere with just finding out approximately what it would cost. Not to go ahead with it, not to hire a consultant, not to get bids, things like that, just to get a rough idea of what it would cost. And I think we've already, the cost of just that assessment was somehow estimated about $8,700. Whoever gave that number out, that's what we heard. So
For what? 8,700?
for the assessment, just to determine a design, probably the concept, that's the word you're using there.
Well, it seems to me like we can get a better number without having to go outside of, I mean, if you had enough time, could you?
Well, I mean, again, I've never done pickleball courts, but for me, the starting point would be something like this, and I don't know who, Pickleball, something central, this is a website, whatever, but this range appears, let's assume this range would be close. You said you had a bunch of other communities that had pickleball courts. I would go to those other communities and probably see if I could get their plans and their, whatever they spent for those particular things, and I think in, I don't want to say short order, but in a reasonable amount of time, you could at least see if you're in this $110,000 to $150,000 range. And once you know you're in that range, then you could potentially, and most of your grant writing, and as far as my past experience with trying to get grants and things, they want to know what the total project cost is in every single one I've ever submitted. And as of now, I don't know. And then again, I don't know if anyone's looked at the site. I think somebody has, I'm not sure, but some of those things would factor in. Maybe this site's, easier than some of the sites that they've had. Maybe it's more difficult, maybe you have to move more dirt. I don't know any of those types of things, but I'd try to identify this range, and I would use examples from other communities and what their actual bid construction costs were. You know, maybe you get 3, 4, 5 of them examples, and it sounds like you could go out and get Stillwater somebody must have done a 8-quart here, or some other community, and
Yeah.
then you could kind of pin down this range a little bit before you start talking about whether it's gonna be, you know, 50-50 split on costs, 75-25, or, I don't know where all this money's coming from, but.
Would you have time to do that for our next meeting then? Would you take that on, or?
We could help you get that
mean,
information, because we do have a
I
person
can
that's
spend
worked
some
with
time.
those.
Again,
He was just saying that these guys could help to get some of that
We
information.
could probably get you some.
one of the things I'd caution is, you know, again, when you get into this, like specialized, I call it specialized recreational type facilities. If you recall like the playground that comes to mind that was put in up at Whitecap, that started out as a real easy process, and I think it turned out to be a little bit more difficult, and there were some extra cost type things that kind of surfaced. And again, not being a person that's heavily experienced in recreational facilities and their design, but I know one thing though, is that the costs of those facilities are usually high. So again, yeah, I can dig in and see what I can find out, but I'd want to get into somebody with a little bit more expertise in those types of things. And I'd do the same thing, as I'd start out with example other communities. Can you give us a copy of your plans? It'd be nice to get your actual copy of your bid documents if you could, and then, you know, get 3 or 4 examples. And I think that likely would put you into a range.
They're basically tennis courts, but smaller. They're 44 by 20 is the total size of them. Okay.
So we need more time.
Yeah. But I think,
But before I commit to next meeting, I'm gonna be out of town for 10 days in the middle of December and a couple other things, so.
So, what are you saying?
January.
Well, I mean, when's the next meeting?
No,
We probably won't have one in December, so.
it would be the 26th, and we're closed that day, so,
When would it be?
January 24th,
in the January.
is that when it would be?
That would give everybody
31st.
lots of time to gather lots of information.
Well, we could gather some information by the end of January, I think, get some examples, and I'll take help with, anybody's got, any of these other communities and their examples, but that's where I'd go, is I'd, put some calls in and.
That's what I'd like to offer to you, because Michael Lammer has been involved in the development of courts in about 6 communities. One of them was Menominee, Forest Lake, River Falls. He has contacts with contractors that built those courts, so he can give you some real specifics. So if I can get your contact information, I will get it to him to connect with you.
Okay, I know Mike too.
Oh, okay,
Perfect.
great.
It's the racquetball Mike, right? You did a lot, okay.
Okay, so.
But no, in fact, that might be
I
a
don't know
good
if we're
starting point.
approving
Mike, give
anything
me a
at this
call.
point. That's,
I don't think so.
We're asking Tom to spend his time, which is our dollars, to come up with a better estimate of what this might look like.
yeah, we
This
need
is
to
not
take the
engineering,
idea
not
and come up,
in-depth
yeah.
study of this site, but it's, in general, what's a pickleball court gonna cost you? You know, some decisions, you might ask them, say, does it need to be lighted or not? You know, what's the, you know, are we gonna, so asking questions like that, working with those guys, with the pickleball committee. So, resources and have that.
Do we even need a
Estimate by
motion for that?
29.
We're just gonna continue discussions and development as, and the more ideas we can get from you guys as well, the better, because if you don't ask for everything and you get it the way you want it, you're gonna end up with something less, in my opinion. So I think we should shoot for 8 and make it nice and see where we get to. If it's 250 grand, well, maybe that's a problem. But if it's not, it's not. So, okay. I guess, yeah, thank you very much. So I don't think we need to talk about reallocation of park funds either at this point. But I'm glad we had the discussion, because you just don't know. All right, and
So,
Dodge that one.
yeah,
Right.
that'll just stay in the fund.
That just stays there.
That just stays in the fund.
that's great.
So,
Any project updates you want to talk about, Kevin? We haven't had to plow any snow, that's good.
No, I've been happy with that.
It's funny because it started out looking pretty grim, you know, kind of cold for sure. Okay, I don't know if Tom has any items for future agendas.
Well, I just had a question that might lead to an agenda item. Do we have a, you know, we bond for different projects every year, but are we putting anything aside in reserve, or do we have the ability to do that, to build up a fund over time? Or would we want to do that?
You know, with levy limits, it's hard, but you are doing that. Remember when we bonded this spring, we had the undesignated capital project fund balance, and we used $480,000 of that to buy down those bonds. So the council did make that decision. And so we do have some reserves in the undesignated capital project fund to continue to do that, so that we don't have to bond for these full amount of these projects.
Okay.
So,
You know what, maybe I just need to discuss it sometime with you to get a better idea.
yeah, but we talked about, we've got about 1.3 in that balance. And so we've used it for such things as buying down the bonds in the spring. And so we could do it for other capital projects too that come up that we don't have, that we haven't bonded for yet.
All right.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay, you can always add
Yeah,
whenever you
yeah.
want.
Yeah.
I'd like us to take a look at complete streets, you know, the concept of complete streets. There was a really good article by SEH in the Municipality magazine, this last magazine, and see if it would be possible to have a checklist. I mean, we won't do everything in a complete streets necessarily, but have a checklist. And complete streets is about making streets accessible for, or suitable for pedestrians, for bicyclists, for everybody and cars. So, and you know, Hanley, we're doing a retrofit now, trying to figure out how to make that more suitable for pedestrians. When we put it in with an industrial complex right next to a large development, and didn't really adequately prepare that for, you know, for that street for that use. But I'm wondering if we could come up with a checklist to say, okay, how much of this do we want to apply as we rebuild these, as we do our major redevelopment, or as new streets come in? What do we want to have? For example, in Carmichael Heights, we insisted on having paths of certain widths. I mean, but that wasn't really a requirement. We just said, you got to do that. That was part of one of the things we said it had to be there. But to have a list that we would look at and say, what's right, you know, considering the street and what's there in the future, how should that be developed, and what kind of widths should be set aside, perhaps, even for future changes.
Do you have access to information about that? Can you send that to Deb or have her forward to us so we can, or you want to put it on the agenda for discussion, or?
Sure, I'll have something by then, yeah.
Okay.
That'll probably go to Tom too.
Okay.
Tom?
Yeah.
Tom, did you have any project updates?
No, maybe just a couple quick, we're still on track with our Walnut Street Bridge repairs. We just reviewed the final draft of the specs with dates and some things about closing the bridge and that type of thing, but we're still looking to try to bid this thing early in the year, January. We're still looking at construction to be, maybe we can steal a week out of March. We can't guarantee that, but we're still shooting for April and May, and we're trying to get done by the holiday weekend at the end of May is our goal for the completion of that. So that's pretty much been the same for most of the discussions here in the last 6 months or so. And then on the Hanley Road, we're hoping to still have this meeting I haven't heard if it's actually scheduled on the 7th of December to talk about some of the issues that were brought up in previous meetings about pedestrian crossings, speed, lane configuration, and some of those other things on hand.
This is a joint meeting, right, between us and public
That
safety?
was the goal, correct?
Yeah, okay. Cool. Is that here?
I believe so. I
Okay.
don't know that, I think Devin was scheduling that election and whether there was gonna be another second council meeting, and so there was a couple of, 2 or 3 different things he was juggling for, meetings.
So it's a
Meeting
week
times.
tomorrow?
I think they meet at 5:30, don't they? Safety? I'm not sure.
I mean, when's this joint meeting? Was it
December
December 8th?
7th.
December
It's a
7th,
Thursday.
Thursday. Mhm.
Okay.
It'll be between 5 and 6 or 5:30 or whenever they meet.
The agenda should be coming out because it should be,
Yeah, I heard they were gonna maybe try to have a public safety meeting, the regular, I guess, regular public safety meeting prior to that. And maybe that was only a 30-minute meeting, so maybe that's at 5 and this other meeting's at 5:30
Okay.
but don't quote me because it hasn't been finalized and has not been sent out yet. But I heard a rumor to that effect.
All right. Well, you're way ahead of me. All right. You guys have any items for future agendas? Or you're on the right? No. Okay,
Maybe on project update, I'm a little bit concerned that something slipped through the cracks here in pouring the cement for the exercise facility. That, as far as I know, I'm not aware of any review that said we're going to do this. I mean, we approved conceptually last fall when the presentation was made, but I'm not aware that we ever said where it's going to be and what, because at that time it could be spread out, it could be combined. So somehow we poured a pad for that, and I'm a little surprised that wasn't approved somehow. Am I off base on that? Should it have been, or is it just a?
I don't believe they ever really got into the base part of it. I think it was just gonna be, depending on funds, whether it was gonna be the mulch or whether it was gonna be concrete or whether it was gonna, they're still actually trying to raise funds for the pour-in-place pad. That would still possibly be,
Wasn't it poured? I was told it was poured.
you know, the rubberized texture, that would
Oh.
be still poured over the top of it. They're
okay,
still doing
okay.
fundraising for that, so I guess that's,
But that's a pretty big structure to be pouring, especially since we're developing a park plan for the whole park.
that was approved before the waterfront study was ever approved.
That was never never approved.
You know, was the location, that's the only location I was
Or
aware
of
of.
I'm not aware of that, and I would think it would.
yeah, I
come through
never
here.
talked about it either, so.
It was pretty, I
that just
think it
kinda
was
got
just a
done.
consent type thing, to accept the concept, and it went to,
Concept, but not
Often ends
a
up getting
long
moved,
way
ends
of
up
difference
getting
between
moved.
concept and where it's going to be, and we're going to pour a 30 by 40 cement pad. That's a big deal, especially in the park that we're developing.
It's already done, right? It's, yeah.
But how that happened, it shouldn't have, to me, it shouldn't have happened.
Fair enough.
You know, I'm not against the project, but it needed to walk through the steps.
All right, anything else? I'm gonna move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned, thank you.